People are born believing they are alone inside their skin, unaware that something ancient is tied to them long before their first breath. An invisible thread wraps gently around the soul at the moment of existence itself. It does not ask for permission. It does not explain itself. It simply connects. This thread is called a soul string, and it stretches across time, distance, and even silence, binding two souls that are meant to find each other, not easily, but inevitably. Evan had felt it his entire life. He could never explain the quiet ache that followed him everywhere, like a missing note in a song. Even as a child, surrounded by laughter and warmth, there were moments when his chest tightened with a longing that had no name. He would stare at the sky for hours, convinced that somewhere beyond what he could see, something was calling him. People told him he was imaginative, emotional, too thoughtful for his own good. He learned to smile and nod, but deep down he knew the feeling wasn't imagination. It was absence. On the other side of the world, Lena learned how to survive without answers. She grew up believing strength meant silence. Feelings were dangerous, distractions that weaken resolve. Yet no matter how carefully she controlled her life, there were moments she couldn't explain: sudden warmth in her chest, unexpected tears, a sense of being watched over by something gentle and unseen. At night, she dreamed of hands she had never held and a voice she had never heard, but somehow recognized. When she woke, the emptiness hurt more than the dream itself. Time passed, as it always does, indifferent to longing. Evan became a man who lived through words. Writing was the only place where his heart felt understood. Every story he wrote carried echoes of searching, of almost meetings and invisible connections. He never realized he was tracing the shape of his own soul string on paper, hoping one day the universe would recognize it and answer back. Lena became someone people admired, focused, successful, composed. She built a life that looked complete from the outside. But inside, she felt like a house with one room permanently locked. She didn't know what was missing, only that something essential had never arrived. The soul string stretched as they lived their separate lives. Sometimes it loosened, allowing them to forget. Sometimes it tightened without warning, reminding them that forgetting was temporary. During moments of heartbreak, Evan felt it pull hard, as if reassuring him that the pain was not meaningless. During moments of quiet triumph, Lena felt it vibrate softly, as if someone unseen was proud of her. Neither of them knew the other existed. The universe waited. Their paths brushed against each other countless times without meeting. They stood under the same moon, breathed the same kind of rain, listened to the same songs at different moments. Fate is patient like that. It allows you to become who you need to be before it brings you home. The year everything changed, the pull became impossible to ignore. Evan felt it one ordinary morning while walking through the city. The air shifted, heavy with something electric. His heart stumbled, breath catching painfully in his chest. He stopped, hand pressed against himself as if he could physically feel the string pulling forward. For the first time, it wasn't gentle. It was urgent. Lena felt it that same day while standing alone at a crowded station. Surrounded by strangers, she suddenly felt unbearably close to someone who wasn't there. Her chest burned with recognition and fear intertwined. Instead of pushing the feeling away like she always had, she let it guide her feet. Neither of them understood why they were walking where they were walking. They only knew stopping felt impossible. When their eyes finally met, the world didn't explode. It went quiet. There was no dramatic moment, no perfect line, no instant confession. Just a deep, bone-level knowing. Evan felt as if he had found something he'd been missing without realizing he had lost it. Lena felt the locked room inside her finally open, light spilling in where silence had lived for years. They spoke like people remembering each other rather than meeting for the first time. Conversation flowed without effort, without fear. Silences were comfortable, charged with meaning rather than awkwardness. Every smile felt familiar. Every glance felt like a promise already made. The soul string relaxed. But destiny never offers love without cost. Life tested them the way it always does, with distance, misunderstandings, timing that felt cruel. The string stretched thin as oceans came between them, as words went unsaid and pride built walls neither of them meant to create. There were nights Evan wondered if he had imagined the connection. There were mornings Lena convinced herself that letting go would hurt less than hoping. Yet even when they tried to move on, the string refused to loosen. In moments of despair, Evan felt a steady pull that whispered, "Wait." In moments of doubt, Lena felt warmth that said, "Return." Soul strings do not prevent pain. They give it meaning. When they found their way back to each other, older, scarred, wiser, the reunion wasn't perfect. It was honest. Apologies replaced excuses. Vulnerability replaced fear. They chose each other not because fate demanded it, but because the string had taught them what life felt like without its pull. Love, they learned, wasn't the sudden recognition. Love was the staying. Years later, sitting side by side in quiet moments, Evan sometimes traced invisible patterns on Lena's hand, smiling at the thought of the thread that had guided them. Lena would rest her head against his shoulder, finally at peace with the emptiness that once haunted her. Some soul strings lead lovers together. Some lead best friends. Some lead souls who change each other forever, even if only briefly. But all soul strings share one truth. What is truly meant for you will find you. Not when you are ready, but when you are brave enough to feel. And somewhere beyond sight, beyond logic, the invisible thread continues to exist, patient, eternal, waiting to guide the next lost soul home. Time did not suddenly become kind after Evan and Lena found each other. If anything, it became more honest. Living with a soul string was different from discovering it. The first recognition had been soft, almost magical, but staying connected required courage they hadn't known they would need. Love exposed everything they had learned to hide. Evan's fear of abandonment surfaced in moments of silence. Lena's instinct to withdraw appeared whenever emotions grew too intense. The string did not shield them from these flaws, it illuminated them. Some days felt effortless. On those days, the world seemed aligned, as if the universe itself approved of their closeness. They would walk together without speaking, feeling the same thoughts rise and fall between them. Evan would write late into the night while Lena slept nearby, her presence grounding him in ways words never could. Lena would design spaces with new tenderness, imagining places where people could feel the safety she now felt beside him. But other days were heavy. Arguments arose not from lack of love, but from fear of losing it. The string tightened during those moments, not painfully, but insistently, refusing to let either of them walk away without understanding. Evan learned that silence was not protection. Lena learned that distance was not strength. They learned together. There were nights when Evan woke suddenly, heart racing, convinced something was wrong. Before panic could take hold, he would feel it, the gentle reassurance of the string, calm and steady. Somewhere, Lena was breathing. Somewhere, she existed. That knowledge was enough to bring him back to sleep. Lena, too, felt it in unexpected moments. In crowded rooms where she once felt invisible, the string anchored her. Even when Evan wasn't there, she no longer felt alone. It wasn't dependence. It was connection, the kind that strengthened rather than consumed. As years passed, the string evolved. It no longer pulled forward urgently. It rested between them, responsive, alive. When one of them felt joy, the other felt warmth. When one of them felt grief, the other felt a quiet heaviness they couldn't explain but instinctively understood. They began to notice it in small things. Evan would reach for his phone moments before Lena called. Lena would turn around in a crowd seconds before Evan appeared. Coincidences became common enough to stop surprising them. They never spoke about it openly, not because it felt strange, but because it felt sacred, something that didn't need language. Yet the universe, relentless in its lessons, was not finished with them. An opportunity arose for Lena, one she had worked toward her entire life. A project overseas, demanding years of commitment. The kind of chance people dreamed of and rarely received. When she told Evan, excitement and fear tangled tightly inside her. He smiled. He meant it. But later, alone, the old ache returned. The string stretched. Distance was familiar territory for it, but this distance felt different. This was not separation forced by circumstance. This was a choice. Lena felt the tension too. Every step toward her future pulled her slightly away from him. The string didn't resist, but it did not loosen either. It reminded her that destiny was not something to outrun. They spent long nights talking, voices low, honest, afraid. There were no accusations. Only questions with no easy answers. Love, they realized, was not about sacrificing yourself entirely. Nor was it about abandoning what made you whole. The string waited. In the end, Lena left, not to escape him, but to honor herself. Evan stayed, not because he was left behind, but because his path required stillness. The goodbye was not dramatic. It was tender, full of promises they didn't know how to define. As time passed, they grew separately, but never apart. Evan poured himself into his writing. His words deepened, sharpened, filled with understanding he hadn't possessed before. Readers felt it, though they didn't know why. His stories carried truth now, the kind that could only come from loving without owning. Lena faced loneliness in foreign places, but never emptiness. In moments of doubt, she felt the string warm against her chest, steady as a heartbeat. She knew Evan was still there, living, becoming, waiting without stagnating. Years moved quietly. When they finally stood in the same place again, there was no rush. No need to catch up on lost time. The string had already done that for them. Their reunion felt less like returning and more like continuing a sentence neither of them had finished. They were not the same people anymore. They were better. Love, they learned, was not the miracle of finding each other. It was the miracle of growing without breaking the thread that bound them. And the soul string, ancient, invisible, eternal, rested easily between them, having fulfilled its purpose not by forcing their paths together, but by ensuring that no matter how far they traveled, they always knew where home was. As time settled into something quieter, Evan and Lena learned that soul strings did not fade with familiarity. They deepened. The intensity changed shape, turning from urgency into steadiness, from longing into presence. Love no longer felt like something they had to chase or protect. It became something they lived inside. Ordinary moments grew sacred. Morning light spilling across the room while Lena traced patterns on Evan's arm. The sound of Evan's laughter drifting through the house while Lena worked in another room. Shared meals, shared silences, shared exhaustion at the end of long days. These moments were not dramatic, but they were complete. Still, life continued to test them in quieter ways. There were days when the world felt heavy, when responsibilities piled up and exhaustion dulled their connection. On those days, the string did not disappear. It softened, reminding them that closeness did not always require words. Sometimes it required patience. Sometimes space. Sometimes simply staying. Evan learned that loving Lena meant respecting the parts of her that needed solitude. Lena learned that loving Evan meant allowing herself to be seen even when she felt fragile. The string adjusted to these lessons, flexible yet unyielding. Years passed gently. Their hair showed the first signs of time. Their dreams shifted, growing less about becoming and more about preserving what they had built. They spoke about the future not with urgency, but with trust. Whatever came next, they would face it aware of the thread that had carried them this far. One evening, sitting together in quiet reflection, Evan finally spoke what had lived in his heart for years. "Do you ever wonder," he asked softly, "what we would have been without the string?" Lena thought for a long moment before answering. I think, she said, we would still have been ourselves. Just, lonelier. The realization didn't sadden them. It filled them with gratitude. The soul string had not created their love. It had simply made sure they didn't miss it. And somewhere beyond time, beyond language, the invisible thread continued to exist, not pulling, not stretching, just resting. Content. Silent. Certain. Because some connections are not meant to be dramatic or loud. Some are meant to last.